Hello, lovely learners. Welcome back to ALifeLearned. First off, I just wanted to thank all those that had seen my last vlog for your awesome support and kind comments, and even informative comments. I really, really do appreciate everything you guys share with me. But moving on to other topics of medical issues, and to continue the dental saga, I guess, because I had been just vlogging about this last year, technically. I didn't end up getting the anchor put in. I think I did mention this in part of a last vlog or in a post at some point, but if you hadn't seen that, yeah, never happened. Last November, I went in thinking I was going to have an anchor stuck up into my skull to get a prosthetic put on to have my tooth put in. But they woke me up after sedating me and everything to tell me that they didn't have enough bone density there to work with. It was actually a pretty ridiculous experience now that I recall, where they brought me in, got me all set up for the sedation, and then read my paperwork and was like, oh shoot, we're supposed to x-ray her first. Okay, well here, we'll just tape everything to you so it doesn't pull on your innards, because they got a needle in my arm or my hand, and here, go over to the x-ray room and get an x-ray. And it's just like, why did you ever sedate me if the x-rays showed poor bone density? Or do they not show it? Then why do you ever x-ray? I was a little bit wondering if it was a case of mishandling there, but they woke me up, told me there was enough bone density, told me I had to go get a bone graft. And I guess considering it was like a 10-year-old injury, the tooth had been broken and sitting in the cavity dead for almost a decade. I suppose that makes sense. I don't know. I don't understand that stuff that well, but anyway, to that regard, I got basically put into the public healthcare system because then you have to move into a hospital to get a bone graft wherever it is. And it was actually being done by the same doctor. He does bone grafts on certain days of the week in a specific hospital just outside of the city. So I had to make some special arrangements to get there, but worked it out. Initially, I had to wait. I thought I had to wait quite a while, though, because being in the public system, how it is when it's not an emergency, you get to wait. And so my first appointment was in February, which was a 3-month wait. I was pretty disappointed about that, but they got it moved to January 24th. And yeah, I don't know, it was pretty brutal. Hurt a lot. When I first came out, it was like they didn't have me on any pain medication at all. I first woke up and it was just excruciating pain, and I kept having to be like, it hurts, give me more, whatever you're giving me. And then I ended up getting really sick from the meds, whatever it is they were giving me. And, not having been allowed to eat. It's been an ordeal. Threw up on the way home. Good times. But I had, a bag. I was prepared because I know how my stomach is. Ended up getting pretty swollen because I'm really bad for icing properly. I tried, and they gave me proper ice packs, and I have my own little proper ice pouch thing, which is different from my childhood, where I was, being beaten on a lot and holding ice to myself quite often, but it was often vegetables and whatever was in the freezer. So it's a little different, but it's still a frequent reminder to have to hold ice to my face in particular, and I hate it. So not very good at doing the 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off thing. I thus swelled up quite a bit. I think I have a picture somewhere. I'll pop it up if I do. But after that, I went in. Well, before I went in for my follow-up to see how it was healing, I sort of took the sutures out because I'm bad. I'm not good at recovery. Anyways, stop shitting on myself. But the sutures would poke down into my tongue, very directly downward. They were done poorly, if you ask me, and so I couldn't really stand them, and I removed them, and it, I think, contributed to the gums not coming together very well. And then he also explained that they overfill the bone grafts to make sure that there's more than enough material there. And so because of that, it didn't close, and he saw that that was happening. He was like, okay, well, we'll let it go a couple weeks, see if it starts to close over, but if it doesn't, we'll just trim it back a bit and it should close up fine. Sorry. So went back a couple weeks later, nothing had really changed. If anything, it had receded. So he was like, okay, we'll just put in a little bit of local freezing and we'll drill it out a little. The drilling and stuff wasn't that bad because of the local freezing. Putting the needle in the top of my palate for the freezing, fucking brutal. Sorry, excuse my French, but oh me god, so bad. Made me cry. Yeah, wasn't happy. But then was like, okay, come back in 2 weeks. Went back in 2 weeks. I could actually feel it still receding, and there was like a shard on the side that he had missed, and I was like, do you feel that? Do you see that? And he's like, oh yeah, okay, that's just there, but it's fine. It should still close over. Give it a couple more weeks. So 2 more weeks went by, so that's a whole month now. And then, we're at 6 weeks now since my initial checkup. And then he's like, okay, in between, he had set another appointment for 2 weeks, but the week between, I was very dissatisfied with that extra shard and was like, it's not closing. And I think it's because of that. And so I went in, I made an extra appointment. I had to see someone else, not him, because he wasn't available. And that person used this spray topical stuff that was perfect and fine and didn't hurt at all. And then he's just like, zit, zit, there you go. And I was just like, cool, that didn't hurt. That was awesome. Thank you. And then I went back for my follow-up appointment the following week, and then he apparently hadn't been informed that I had made that little appointment in between, which was annoying. He still wanted to like check it out, and he'd basically already planned to drill out that extra little piece then, which was like, anyway, so he took a look at it and was like, oh yeah, it's still not covering over, it's doing better, but here, we'll just drill out a little bit more. And I was like, can you use the topical stuff, please? And he's just like, oh, I've never used that, but okay, I guess so. What's his name use? And, got the information, got it. And it was still pretty fucking brutal getting that needle, because he used the needle to make sure it was frozen enough. And then after that one, it genuinely started to recede quite badly. And I wasn't sure if it was the fact that I used cannabis for my anxiety relief, and I particularly smoke it, and so I tried what happened? No, so I went back a couple weeks after that, or was it bad memory, but I think it was only about a week later. He'd made an appointment again for 2 weeks later, but a week after that, I had been taking pictures of it all the way, and I could clearly see that it was receding, and I was very concerned. So I made another appointment in between the 2 weeks that he wanted me to. And I went in and I was like, look at these pictures. Like I made a little comparison picture from Instagram's app, and was like, it's receding, not coming together. Like, I'm really worried about this. And so he looked at it and he's like, oh yeah, no, part of your gum is really mobile. That shouldn't be like that. This is concerning. It looks like the graft might be getting rejected. And I'm just like, what? And so he's like, okay, we'll make an appointment for this Thursday. This is like on a Tuesday. He's like, we'll make an appointment immediately to go in and possibly remove all of it, or maybe just a piece of it. Sometimes just part of it's getting rejected, whatever. And then we'll replace it with this other stuff that isn't quite as good as your own, but it can still do the job. And I'd done a bunch of research up to that point. I'm not sure if this is what he was talking about, because he didn't fully explain, but I think he's talking about this like synthetic material they use that they put your blood cells in between, and it helps it slowly grow into being your own material. It's not exactly your own bone, but it's I don't know. Do the research if you'd like, if you're interested, just Google it. But I was pretty scared at that point. Something else that has really sucked since January, so February, March, April, have really, really, really sucked. because I haven't really been able to smile the way I usually do, and just interact with people without them clearly seeing that I have a fake tooth. Because he, basically trimmed the very top right here, like down quite a bit, as you can see, because when I used to smile, it still looked like a tooth shape, right? Like it didn't look that bad in my last vlogs before January. But he didn't want it touching or intruding on the gum whatsoever with the bone graft, because that can cause issue with it healing. So he trimmed it down like that, which has meant that I have done a lot less smiling in the last 3 months, or tried to, which is a really depressing thing to try to do, to smile less. Like the way I interact with people is very much, if I agree with what you're saying, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or, you know, like in my thumbnails, I usually would smile, but in my last Active Green thumbnail, I did not. So it's been really shitty. It's made this year feel pretty bad, because it's felt kind of like 2018 has been the year of not smiling, or at least trying not to. Or knowing that if I have smiled, even just a bit like this, someone's noticed and they've been like, ooh, what's going on there? You know? And it's not even that I care what people think, it's more just like, I don't want them to think about it. It's not their business, and I want them to focus on what I'm saying, not the fact that I have tooth issues. Another thing that's become an issue with all of this, because it's taken so long for this bone graft situation to be worked out, is my teeth are receding. After the first bone graft procedure, there was he had to cut my gums to loosen it, to pull them or something. So there's stitches over here, and they were pulled up on this tooth, and so now there's recession here, and now this tooth, this one, has exceptional recession. Like, you can't really tell from this far away in this type of camera, but with like my other camera, my good one that I do my edited content with, you can tell. And just, you know, looking at me in person, like compared to my old pictures, for example, I look at my old smile and pictures I have, and I'm just like, so it means that once I finally get my implant, which, by the way, the procedure is tomorrow, it's finally been rescheduled, then I have to, and then once I get the prosthetic finally put in, then I will have yet another procedure of having to get a gum transplant. Backtracking a little, though, when I went in for that follow-up emergency, you could say, bone graft, they ended up finding out that, for the most part, the bone graft was fine. It's just that there was like this little cap at the bottom that was visible to me, that was being rejected, and so they just took that little bit out and stitched it up, and it's healed up fine. It's doing okay. So because of that, he's like, okay, we can finally schedule the implant procedure. And so that is tomorrow. And I'm very anxious about it for a lot of different reasons that I will get into in other videos in the future. But I mostly just want it over with, because as I mentioned in my last video, I'm going to be going to school soon, and so I just want to get this all done so I can just go focus on school, because I don't have time to deal with dental procedures when I'm in the middle of school, you know? And now I have to deal with that gum transplant after I get the prosthetic. Also, running out of money. This stuff is expensive, and like, I was able to get the tooth removal covered by the public health care with disability, but everything else I've had to pay privately, so it's been difficult. I did have the compensation money, if you guys remember, from criminal compensation, and that's how I've afforded it. But, you know, life has costs too, and disability doesn't give enough to live on. So it's been whittling away in me just trying to exist and live, you know? But anyway, I still have enough put aside for the prosthetic. I'm just stressed because I can't smile. And they're going to drill my head tomorrow. But anyway, that's where everything sits. I've talked for way too long. So I will stop. But in the end, if you're ever dealing with this procedure, I highly advise just considering the fact that it might end up costing a lot more than you expect if you're paying entirely privately. And if you have any kind of public health care to rely on, it might take longer than you expect if you at any point have to rely on the public health care system. So be prepared for that, and try to be prepared for possibly losing your smile for a while. But in the end, the goal is to get the smile back, right? So hopefully that works out. Anyways, yeah. If you're going through any kind of dental thing like this, I completely empathize with you. Please feel free, as always, to comment below with any story you have that might relate. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for all your support. You've been awesome. Just the best, as always. And I don't know when I might be vlogging again, with life picking up and school starting in September, but it will certainly be before September. So whenever that might be, I hope you do join me again sometime soon or whenever to share a little something I've learned in life.